everyone, Craig Ripley here. Welcome to another edition of Living Off the Slab. Today I have my Victory garb on because I'm going to talk about the demise of Victory motorcycles. Now I know some of you are probably saying right now, Victory motorcycles, why are you going to be bothering to even talk about them? They never sold a ton of bikes. And you wouldn't be wrong there, right? They never even came close to selling the numbers that Harley-Davidson does. However, as a Victory owner, I've been asked through emails and through comments on my videos to cover my perspective on Polaris Industries shutting down the Victory motorcycle line. To give you a little background, I picked up my Victory Vision in 2009 when I was looking for a new touring bike. So now, after buying the Vision, I also became a member of the Victory Motorcycle Club. When I purchased my bike, my dealer, whose mom's in Foxborough, Massachusetts, they gave me a little card with, several different organizations that I could join, and one of them was the Victory Motorcycle Club, and I found out that there was a local chapter right here in my area. So my wife and I decided to check out our local chapter of the Victory Motorcycle Club. And it turned out that it was just a bunch of old folks like us, husbands and wives, that got together every weekend and went out on some great rides and found great places to eat. So it fit right in for us, and we found out we really enjoyed the people and we're really having a good time, so decided to stick with it. So after a couple years of being involved with the group, I actually ended up becoming president of our local chapter, and I still am to this date. I took over in 2012 and I've been doing it for, a little over 4 years now. So our chapter, the Massachusetts Bay Victory Riders, is based out of southeastern Massachusetts and northern Rhode Island. We've ended up getting a lot of members from Rhode Island because there isn't a local chapter down there. A large part of our drawing area as a riding club is because we are based out of Mom's in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Now, if you're not familiar, Mom's is actually the by volume largest Victory dealer in the world, and they have been for about the last 10 years or so. So if I have any insight here that you haven't already read in the media, it would be because of my association with Mom's. When I heard about Polaris closing down Victory motorcycles, I was able to ride down to Mom's and immediately go talk with the owners there, who are the Wheeler family, a great group of folks, and I met with Joel Jr., who was able to give me the scoop, and I arranged to have him come talk to our chapter at our next meeting. As you can imagine, this hit the dealers a lot harder than it did us, just the Victory owners, right? We might have one bike in the mix here, or maybe 2 or 3 bikes even at the most, but Joel, for example, has about 300 bikes in inventory now that he has to figure out what to do with. Right, so it's a big shock to them. They got no advance warning on this. They learned about it on social media just like we did. So now, why did Polaris do that? Why didn't they give the dealers some advance warning? Well, because they're a publicly traded company and they can't give out information like this that might affect their stock prices to only one group of people. They have to announce it to everybody, that is the general public, all at the same time. So again, what they did was just put it out there on social media, let the chips fall where they may, and then contacted the dealers afterwards. So if you've been paying attention to this story, you know that 2012 was the biggest year for sales in Victory. And Steve Minetto, the Vice President of Motorcycles for Polaris, has come out and said they sold somewhere between 10 and 15,000 units that year. And that's about as close as we're ever going to get to numbers from Polaris Industries. So I guess for argument's sake, we can just say they sold about 13,000 bikes in 2012. At Mom's, 2012, like everywhere else, that was their biggest sales year as well. They sold several hundred Victory bikes that year, and in the next 4 years, up to 2016, they've seen that number steadily decline to where they sold less than half the number of bikes in 2016 that they did in 2012. So if that is happening at the world's largest Victory dealer, then you can imagine what is happening at the smaller dealers all around the country. Polaris put out the numbers that the average dealer was only selling about 20 Victory motorcycles every year. And if Joel and other larger dealers are selling several hundred bikes, well, then the numbers at some of these mom and pop shops are probably really small, and it doesn't even make any sense for them to have the bikes on the floor. So along with these falling sales numbers, Victory was also at the place where they were going to have to start investing in some new platforms. And that investment was going to cost them tens of millions of dollars. In addition to this investment in Victory, they were going to have to continue to make investments in Indian as well. Again, putting out new platforms, new bikes, because you can't just sit there, whether it's Victory or whether it's Indian, you can't just sit there and keep the same bikes year after year, right? It gets stale. And I think actually that's one of the issues that Victory had. They hadn't upgraded their line since about 2011. Right? That's when they came out with a new transmission and ABS on the big touring bikes. But other than that, they really hadn't done anything new until the Octane, which unfortunately was probably too little too late. I know that a lot of us think that that 106 air-cooled engine was a great engine, and it was. I have it in my bike, and I think it's awesome. But unfortunately, it's not going to meet the clean air standards going forward, and particularly the E4 and E5 standards that are coming out in Europe, and EPA is about to levy some new regulations here in the United States. So these old engines aren't going to hack it in the future. So whether it's Polaris or Indian or Harley Davidson, they are going to have to invest in some new technologies in order to meet these regulations. Now, on top of that, Polaris had some recall issues over the last year or so with the Indians, with the ATVs, and also with their Slingshot brand. And these recalls cost them quite a bit of money. In the end, I guess Polaris had to make a decision, a business decision, right? They could invest in two motorcycle lines, or they can combine their efforts and take the best of both and invest in one motorcycle line that was selling very well and the other one that had declining sales. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think Polaris made mistakes here, because I think that they did. One was that they underestimated to a great degree the number of Victory owners who were going to move over to Indian. Right? They were expecting that maybe 5-10% of their sales of Indians would be cannibalizing some of the Victory sales. But in the end, it ended up being around 30%. The second thing that Polaris did was that they let the brand sit there for too long without really making any improvements in it. And I understand that there were resources because you got the same engineers working on the Victories as you do working on the Indians, and you've got to kind of deal with that, and you're going to have to set one brand aside for a while. Okay, we got that as Victory owners. But I think the problem was that they decided that they wanted to rebrand this Victory line as the performance bike, and the Indian line was going to be their heritage line. Right? And that worked for the Indian sales. But we never really saw something come to fruition for this performance line. Right? There were those of us like me who were looking forward to seeing a naked sport bike, that 156 bike, come out of Victory, or maybe a scrambler, or maybe an adventure touring bike. Those are all hot segments right now that are growing, while the cruiser segment is actually starting to contract a little bit. We old guys are getting up there in age, right? And you need to attract new buyers with these smaller displacement, more sport-oriented bikes. Well, Victory just never delivered on that promise. Now, there are some people out there that say that it was a marketing issue, that Victory just didn't market their bikes. And again, I don't think that that's true. I think that it was the lack of substance behind their marketing. Again, just my personal opinion. For example, Victory invested in the NHRA, right? They had a team that was running there. They were investing in having a presence at NHRA events. And they were also investing in the Pikes Peak Run 2 years in a row, 2 bikes running last year, and they also invested in the Isle of Man TT. Right? All of these are investments moving towards, right, that performance-oriented kind of motorcycle. But again, just doing these kinds of things, right, without having a bike to back it up, well, again, your audience is going to lose interest after a while. Okay, so now that we've covered all of that on why this might have happened, let's talk about what's going to be happening in the future. So first thing, if you have a Victory motorcycle right now, do you need to go out and dump it and sell your bike and be worried about being able to get service? And the answer is probably depends upon where you live. If you're like me and you have a great dealer like Mom's or one of the other great dealers that are out there, the larger Victory dealers, then you're probably going to be fine. You're going to be able to go in and get service on that bike as long as you own it. They're not going to turn you away, right? As long as they can get parts and have those available. Again, there's not going to be an issue. And Polaris is going to keep making parts for these bikes for the next 10 years. Now, will there be an availability issue? Well, I don't know. We have to wait and see. But I know that Mom's has told me that they're planning on stocking a lot of parts. And I'm sure the other larger dealers are going to do that as well. In fact, I know that Joel had talked to me and said that that was definitely happening. He was in communication with the other larger dealers, and this was the plan going forward, and that Polaris was going to work with them on this situation to make sure that there was at least regionally going to be parts and service available. Now, there will also be fire sales out there. Some of the smaller dealers or other dealers that just don't want to have anything to do with Victory anymore will put their models up for sale, probably at very reduced costs, some probably below the dealer cost on these bikes. And if you can grab one, then you better do it right now. So I think that what's going to happen over time is these fire sales are going to go away, and there's going to be a smaller number of Victories available. You'll be able to go to Mom's. Again, some of these other larger dealers, you'll be able to find them. But Mom's, for example, is not interested in dumping all of their Victories for under their cost. They're not going to lose money on this. They're going to sit tight. They're going to, of course, reduce them in costs, but they're not going to lose money on them. Now, of course, if you want things like Victory shirts and other accessories, well, you better get them now because they're only going to be there as long as there's stock available. After that, then we're going to have to go to the aftermarket dealers. Now, along with the major Victory dealers that are going to keep going in the foreseeable future, there's other smaller shops that will keep going as well. Like there's the Vic shop, there's Lloyd's, there's Kyle Crandall here in the Northeast, there's Southern Motor Works down in Florida. So all of these kind of shops are going to keep going and keep servicing Victory motorcycles for the foreseeable future. As long as there's a demand, they're going to keep doing it. There are also some great aftermarket Victory accessory manufacturers and dealers out there. And I'm going to name a few of them. I'm sure that I'm going to miss some, so please don't yell at me. But things like the Witch Doctor, Cyclops, HMD, Stokers down in Dallas, all these things have committed to hanging around and making parts for Victories into the foreseeable future. Bottom line with all of this, at least in my perspective, is that if you're a Victory owner, hold tight. Keep your bike. It was great 2 weeks ago when they made this announcement. It's a great bike now. Keep riding it. That's what I'm going to do. Right? I got nearly 60,000 miles on this thing, and it'll go at least that farther and probably 2 or 3 times that as long as I keep maintaining it. So I don't have to really worry about that, and there's going to be service available for me. I know some people are concerned about trade-in values and so forth. And I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen with that. I do know that the folks at Mom told me that, again, they're working with Polaris, and Polaris is going to come up with some incentives and things. One, to trade in your Victories on new Victories, to trade in your Victories on Indians, and also they're going to be coming up with some cost protection or value protection programs. So again, all of that is in the works. We just need to hold tight and let that stuff shake out and see what happens in a month or two. Right now, people are going crazy, and you try to trade them in, you may lose value. So again, hold tight. That's your best option right now. So when I bought my Vision, I didn't buy it because it was a Victory, right? I bought it because it was a bike that did what I wanted it to do, right? It was comfortable. It handled well. It was a great ride on the road. That's why I bought the bike, not because it was a Victory or that I wanted to be associated with Victory in some way. I ended up getting involved with the Victory Motorcycle Club and with the Massachusetts Bay Victory Riders because of the people that I met. Right? I went to these organizations and I started riding with them. And yes, the Victory motorcycle was an excuse to join, but I stayed because of the people that were involved, because they're great people, because I had a really good time with them. right? And I continue to be involved because of that. It isn't about the motorcycle, it's about the people and the experiences that I have. And those experiences aren't going to go away just because Polaris isn't making Victory motorcycles anymore. The Victory Motorcycle Club is going to stick around. In fact, it might be a good idea to go and join them now if you want to meet other Victory riders, because that's going to be the only place to do it. So what's going to happen to Indian now that it's the only Polaris brand? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Steve Minetto says they want to expand the line and get into some more sportier, performance-oriented bikes. But exactly what that means, I don't know. We're just all going to have to sit back and wait and see. Again, if they come out with something I like, then I'll buy it. If they don't, well, then I'll buy something else. So to end here, I'm going to reiterate again that motorcycling is not about the motorcycle. At least it shouldn't be about the motorcycle. It's about the experiences you have while riding your motorcycle. It's about the friends that you are with while you are riding your motorcycle. What you're riding, the name, the badge on it, again, that really shouldn't matter all that much, because as long as the people are the same and good people are coming in and out of your life because of it, that's really all that matters.